Hey everyone! Sorry it's been a while since my last actual video on Ask a Cat, but life and stuff. So I've gone back and I'm going to answer a bundle of questions from the last video. So rules are the same as always, so if you have any questions you want to ask or anything you want advice on, mostly serious ones please. I don't mind goofy ones, but once again, the standard rules do apply. Just ask down below and they will show up in the next Ask Cat video. So, without further ado, I was asked, how do you deal with being little in public? Like, get a sudden burst of littleness. I get this quite often. So, being little in public can be a pain, especially if it comes on sort of unexpectedly, especially since, if you're anything like me, people tend to give you nicknames that kind of do it. Like, I used to work with someone that always called me baby girl, stuff like that. And, like, people and friends in particular can pick up on these sort of things and do it because they know it makes you happy, stuff like that. So it can be a problem, especially if you are in a more formal setting or if you're just not wanting to be little, if it's an inappropriate situation sort of thing, because it isn't inappropriate to be little in public at times. You can be little to an extent in public and be fine, and it's kind of just managing that and finding ways to pull yourself sort of back out of it. And I don't mean like the second that someone says something that triggers you into a little space, instantly be like, taxes, politics, I have a stamp collection, something like that. I don't mean something like that. I don't mean stuff like that. I mean finding a way to be like, okay, I feel really little right now. But, and yes, I know it's hard to be logical with your little side, but sometimes you have to be. So being like, but I have this to do and this to do, and I can treat myself later, or I can reward myself later if I behave and do all these things. And you find that a lot of adults do this, where they'll like reward themselves for doing something the same way you would reward a child. So instead of rewarding yourself for doing something, it's kind of like rewarding your little side for behaving while under wraps and stuff like that. It's kind of like rewarding your little self for behaving instead. Honestly, I never found being in little space in public anything too bad. It can be an issue if you get too far into little space and you get really sad. Because I have had that, like, I came back from an event a while ago and I had gone so far into little space, further than I had been in a while, and honestly on the bus back home I cried because I was like just so nah. So for times like that, it's really helpful to have other friends that can understand it, so that you can talk to them and tell them, and they can kind of help you out in this situation, tend and mend, as it were, not just being like grow up, but actual tend and mend does tend to help. Generally though, I will tell you that you just kind of have to take control and be aware of your surroundings and be aware of yourself and just relax a bit, because people aren't going to instantly see you in little space and be like, oh, you're in little space, or are going to assume anything. They don't tend not to. So you can let a bit of your little out without panicking. And I hope that's somewhat helpful. I don't really know how to answer that one, because I genuinely never really have too much of an issue with it, other than those times when I need to message someone and be like, I'm kind of sad, or I'm feeling really little and I can't cope properly, sort of thing. Because it does happen occasionally. It does happen occasionally. For times when you're not that bad, you just have to sort of logic yourself out of it. The same you would with other situations as well. Okay. My next question is, what are the best lotions or baby powders to use that aren't made with talc? Thank you. Well, I know, because obviously talc has the issue. If you're a man, it's not so much an issue. But if you're a woman, there have been links to cervical cancer and talc. I myself are quite bad for using talc anyway, but there are cornstarch replacements like Johnson's and Johnson's and all the standard brands do make cornstarch equivalents. I've heard that Johnson's cornstarch equivalent baby powder is actually much closer feeling to talc than, say, like, I tried Tesco's own cornstarch, which I absolutely hated. It felt horrible and it just clumped. But there are also things like Burt's Bees is supposed to be really good for baby lotion. They do this sort of honey wax lotion stuff, and it's supposed to be really good for nappy rash and stuff like that. So I would give them a look out, and honestly still just Johnson & Johnson's. They even do cornstarch powder that's like lavender scented and stuff, like all different kinds. There's like lavender, which is supposed to help with sleep, obviously. I can't remember what other kinds there are. I'm sure there was like a eucalyptus kind or something for a while. I can't quite remember, but they did do a few different kinds, so if you keep an eye out, you can see them. Basically, just look for cornstarch powder instead. And it will say on them if it's talc or cornstarch. Okay? Although, once again, I'm bad. I use talc. I like to live on the edge so dangerously. I also microwave plastic. Okay. Rebel without a cause. Okay. Anyway, someone asked, if you have an ABDL parent and you wet only, what's the ideal amount of ideal for changing, 1 wet or 2, before getting changed? So this is actually kind of dependent on the person, the diapers you're wearing, and the time and what you're about to do. So if you're wearing a thin diaper, obviously 1 wet change, 1 wet change, 1 wet change, but most adult ABDL based ones are actually made to be able to be used a few times. 5,000 milliliters, which is the standard ABDL brand, is made to be able to be worn for almost 12 hours. That's the whole idea behind it. That's why they're so expensive. They're supposed to be able to be worn for 12 hours because 5,000 milliliters should roughly be about 10 full bladders. The average full bladder is roughly 500 milliliters, so about the size of a standard bottle of juice. And that's if you have a standard full bladder. Of course, that's across the whole item. So it really depends. Obviously, if you are about to go to sleep or something like that, you need change because you need to be clean if you're sleeping. Otherwise, you're going to encourage rashes. If it's particularly hot, or if you're going to go do something active, I would encourage changing straight away before you go out, because that's going to lead to nappy rash and stuff like that. It's just all about caring for it and being careful with what kinds you use. I will say, if you're going to use cheap brands, you also need to be careful, because after a while, like, as some of you may know, when urine comes out of the body, it's actually sterile to begin with, but then stuff starts to grow after a while. Sterile to begin with. But certain saps and stuff like that are supposed to be helpful against this. It's supposed to stop that sort of issue, but it doesn't always. And certain cheaper brands tend to be worse for it, I think. But there's also the fact that certain brands' sap doesn't hold up as well. Like, some of it just collapses under pressure and it all starts bunching, stuff like that. There's a difference between expanding and bunching, as most people who have worn it, worn and wetted, will tell you. Bunching is where all the sap from an area starts moving to basically whatever where the gravity pulls it to, wherever is the lowest area. Whereas expanding happens all over and it doesn't lead to bunching. So it really depends. And this sort of links into another question which said, how much do some diapers hold? The standard ABDL diaper these days holds 5,000 milliliters, but there are ones out there in the market like ABU, Preschools, My Diapers, and ones like that, and Fab Senses, which only hold 3,000 to 3,500, which doesn't sound like a huge difference, but that's 1.5 litres. That's like almost a full-size large bottle of juice. It's a large bottle of Coke difference. So there is a difference, and you do need to keep an eye out for it. I would be particularly careful. I do love my large, thicker, like, I've looked at those Fab Six diapers, I've looked at them. They're not really available in the UK yet, and I have thought about getting them. But they have that issue of, because I do like the colours and I like the thickness, but they're really thick with low absorbency relatively, which makes me instantly think that they've just went for much cheaper sap, because the cheaper sap thickens it out, but they didn't go far enough and add enough in, or mix it with more premium quality sap to make it basically hold 5,000. I don't know. I might change my mind if I actually ever get to try them, but you've got to keep an eye out for stuff like that. And then obviously there's the thing of if it's an older diaper and it's near the end of the day, or if it's out of date, then I would say use it once then chuck it, because it's not going to sit right. So it all really depends. But obviously every time you use it, use lotion, stuff like that. Make sure that you're cleaning properly, restoring your skin to as close to its like natural pH as you can, or else you are going to get a rash and you are going to be uncomfortable. I would say, even with ABDL brands, if I am wearing diapers, I will probably change them around 4 times a day, because I think that's how many times I do it to feel comfortable. So, yeah. Okay. Next up. Okay. Next up, someone asked to do a video where it's acceptable to change your diaper, or if you have someone to change you. And I'm going to do a video on it. I'm just going to do like a shout out where I think it's okay. So basically, anywhere that you can do it subtly is okay if you're in public. Like, I have gotten changed in so many Costa coffees, it is ridiculous. I have been changed in a Wagamama's before, right? And it's to do with, I don't do it when it's very busy. I do it when I can get changed when there's no one around, so no one can hear it. Costa coffees seem to, here especially, seem to be very, very good for having one room and the door that you can lock as a toilet, as opposed to the cubicles, which means that you can get changed quite comfortably. I wouldn't suggest using a baby change section, because people are going to think there's something up with you. You can use a disabled toilet, because, you know, the whole incontinence thing does kind of come under disabled stuff, but if you're like me, you might feel a bit awkward going into one. Despite the fact that I am actually disabled, I don't feel comfortable using a disabled toilet, because people always make assumptions and make comments. Or if you're in Britain, like, the worst thing they tend to do is just be like, which is like the ultimate insult. like that very British, I can't say something against you because I am British, but I am going to make you know that I am judging you very harshly by just tutting and shaking my head and occasionally just going like, yeah. So places like that are great. But the thing is, you do have to be very careful in public, because you can't really have someone change you in public. If you and someone of the opposite gender go into a toilet together, or you and someone of the same gender go into a toilet together, people are going to think something's happening, and there's a risk that the police are going to get called, and then you're going to have to explain it all. So I do suggest changing before you come out, or knowing somewhere you can get changed quietly and peacefully without causing any disturbances or causing a stir by being there. Just look into it. I've never found a place where I think you can get changed unless it's somewhere like at a friend's house who is ABDL open sort of thing. I've never seen somewhere you can get changed where someone can change you to do it. I guess maybe you kind of get away with it depending on where you are, if you are in the middle of nowhere. Because if you're in the middle of nowhere and there's like no one around, then you can kind of get changed in the big wide open world without being seen, which isn't the end of the world. I have seen people and heard of people doing that, so I think that's about as far as you can get away with it if you're having someone else change you. So hopefully that's helpful, but most places you can get away with it. If you're like shyer like me, you can usually get away with stuff. You can usually find a bathroom that's quieter, or one that's got the like single door room sort of thing, so you don't have to share so there isn't cubicles, so people aren't going to hear what you're up to and you can get changed. Although I am always very aware that the ripping of the tapes sounds a bit like one of those cheap binders you put on your arm to shoot up. So probably not a great thing to bring up, but where I come from, there's some drug use. So every time I make that noise, I'm like, oh god, please someone don't think that I'm taking out a baggie. Because I'm not. If the police come and are like, where are the drugs? I'm like, sorry, it's just a nappy. I didn't mean it. I swear. Yeah. Okay. Okay. They also asked about doing a video about wearing adult diapers while staying in the hospital, and is it okay to have nurses change you? The fact of the matter is, unless you are bedbound, I don't think it's okay to have a nurse change you. They often let you deal with it yourself. And it's kind of one of those awkward, it's okay to wear in hospital and it's okay if you have incontinence issues, but if you're not bedbound and you can care for yourself to that extent, then you should, because you shouldn't be pushing something that could be your kink or your fetish, be it sexual or not, onto someone else. And there is that kind of dodgy grey area where you need to sort of behave and you need to be respectful, and at the end of the day, if you are bedbound, then they're going to do it themselves. It's just that simple. There are a lot of incontinent people out there that go to hospital and don't have nurses change them. Gotta be respectful, because those people are people. They're not just your personal fetish dispensers because they're nurses. And I know that's probably not what you meant, but a lot of people kind of see it as an excuse. So definitely behave. There's quite a long one, but basically someone has asked, are there any brands similar to Tykables? Because Tykables aren't always in stock, which is kind of a shame, because I know they stock them elsewhere and usually quite often are in stock elsewhere. So it could be a case of just shop around at a different shop. You might not get it from the Tykables shop itself, but you could get it somewhere else. But other brands that can be quite similar to Tykables, I know Dotty is similar, but it's a bit brighter. I know that they used to do this brand. They used to do, what are they called? The Snuggies ones used to do scene extenders, which they used to call the Snuggies Sex, right? And they were just plain white ones. And I know a few places stock them still. Obviously they aren't made anymore, but they're a bit better than the pleather look ones that people have brought up. It's kind of hard because even the ones that tend to be made at the same places or the same factories, they all pay for different things. So I do love Tykables, but there are definitely issues with them, or issues trying to find ones that are really similar to them. I really don't know which ones would be similar. I'm trying to think. I would say Dotty and Super Bimpas, I think shape-wise, are probably the most similar to Tykables, which is probably why I like them so much, because they're ones that I can wear and I feel confident and comfortable in. But beyond that, trying to think, can't think very well, brain's not working, gonna come up with something, I swear soon, I've got no idea. But beyond that, there's things like beyond that, I really can't think of ones that are very similar. I mean, Fabine's have got the 2 tabs, but they are definitely by far more babyish, and they don't feel the same, and they don't hold anywhere near as much, I'd say, from when I tried them. I do need to try newer ones, but I haven't had the chance to. But the older ones definitely didn't live up to them. I'd say, yeah, the most similar are probably those ones. Well, are probably Dotties and Super Bimpas. ABUs don't really even sit the same or have the same sort of appeal. They do ABU do a plain white one, which I guess could be similar to the SEX ones. I think the closest ones to the SEX ones other than that are the Cuddles dry days or something like that. But they are Cuddles, and I don't think they are particularly well made compared to them. So, here you go. There's ones that are comparable in that they are similar in ways, but they're not really the same or all that similar. So it's a bit of a tough one. A lot of companies go for different things, you see, so I think the closest ones are probably, Cuddles Dry Days, the Dotties and Super Bimpas, which is probably why I really like them so much. But I will say that they spill more than a Tykables do. And the ABU planes look kinda similar to the SEX ones, and I guess if you're a DL and you prefer the more medical, they probably look a bit better because they're just plain white. So I hope that's helpful. I'd suggest just going out and buying just a bundle of samples of all different ones and then seeing which ones you like in comparison, because it could be that ones that are similar you don't like, but ones that are completely different to it you might actually end up enjoying. So definitely try about. Always try about. What would be the best AB diaper to buy as my first, and could you do a rundown of diaper lingo, please? Okay, so it depends what you're looking for. There's things like Rears, which are super thick. There are things like Bambinos, which are super soft and super babyish. There are ones like Tykables, Super Dotties, and Super Bimpas, which are like a great midway diaper. They're colourful and they kind of tick all the boxes, personally, with good absorbency. There's ones like ABU Preschool that look more babyish again, but have lower using capacity. It depends on what you want to use and if you're going to use it and what you like and stuff like that. Personally, I can't say that there's any best first diaper. What I can say is, in these days when you can get a premium ABDL brand cheaper, I wouldn't waste money on a knockoff factory sort of brand like my diaper. And my diaper was like the second type I tried, and I quite liked them then, but I liked them then because I didn't have perspective, and then since I tried them again, they just seemed shoddy in comparison. And given that you can get like packs of diapers now for like £16 and a pack of my diapers is like 14, you may as well splash out the extra £2 for a full pack. But I really do just suggest basically going to a site like ABDL Factory, which is filled with samples if you're in the UK, or Diaper Connoisseur or something like that, or Wearing Clouds even if you're in the US, which is filled with samples, and just buy a bundle of samples, try them all out, see what you like, try some like ABU Space, try some Super Bimpas, try some Dotties, try some Preschools, try some Rears 1 tapes and 2 tapes, try a bit of everything, try Magnificos as well, because they're completely different from a lot of other ones. Like, just really give everything a good try, and then make up your own mind on it, because what someone else likes isn't necessarily what you will like. What you're looking for in a diaper isn't necessarily what someone else is looking for in a diaper. You might find that you prefer something quieter, that are 1 taped. You might prefer something really loud, something really bright, that's 2 taped. It's really up to personal taste, so I really do suggest doing that. What I will say is, for diaper lingo, there's some basic ones, like SAP. SAP basically makes up the inside of the diaper. That's what the absorbent stuff is. And it comes in many different grades, and many different forms, and many different mixes. And there are things like the blue patch that you get at the bottom of the diaper, that some of them have and some of them don't. This doesn't actually make them more absorbent. Right, this is just for show. It doesn't mean anything really, except there's a chance, and not all of them do this, there's a chance that they have placed slightly more sap in this area. and that basically just marks the area where more sap should be. And it doesn't always happen, they don't always do this. And cheap sap is thick and less absorbent, so it doesn't expand as much. And more expensive sap is smaller but far more absorbent, so something might expand 5 times the size. Now, it does have expiry dates, and most of it's made from stuff like tree pulp and stuff like that. So it does have expiry dates, and I will go over this in another video. But basically, 3 years from the day it's made is its expiry date. Diapers have to be kept in a warm, dry environment before that, or else the sap will go off earlier. It will absorb the moisture, and you have to be careful of that. It will stop it from being as effective. Which is really why when you buy samples from somewhere and you don't know about the place itself, and if it's a warehouse, there's a chance of it being a warehouse that isn't heated. It needs to be heated. It needs to be somewhere where it's kept warm. Well, warm enough to stave off all this damage that could possibly be done to it. And then after so long, the sap starts to go off and it makes it less absorbent. So if you find you've used a diaper and it's not wicking away quickly, the wet, and it's pulling at the bottom by the plastic, if it goes straight through to the plastic at the back, there's a good chance the sap's either going off or is off. So this could be through mishandling, or it could be through the fact that it's too close to its end date. So once you actually do get packs of diapers, I suggest going somewhere where you can see the expiry date on them. Most of them get 3 years, but within a year to the end date, the sap starts getting a bit iffy, depending on how it's kept. So that's sap. 2 tab versus 1 tab is also a great one, because ironically, obviously, 2 tab and 1 tab sound very similar. So 2 tab just refers to one side having 2 tabs and the other side having 2 tabs. So there's really 4 tabs. And 1 tab just means that there's 1 tab on each side, like a baby diaper. So that's actually 2 tabs. So there's actually 2 tabs. And it took me a while to work out for when people were talking if 2 tab meant that it had 2 tabs over the whole thing or 2 tabs on one side. But basically that's what that means. Waistband is where it stands. Well, when it actually has a waistband built in. And a lot of them do, but some of them don't. It does mean that they can fit a bit better sometimes though. Standing leg guards are the parts inside the diaper that are just like this really thin sort of gauze material that stops it from leaking. So they stand up and stand against the skin so that when you pee, if you pee and it goes like poof, it's going to catch it in the sides and pull it into the middle instead of going through and having an accident. Obviously they can only do so much, but they do help. So that's kind of basic diaper lingo, and I hope that's helpful. So this ended up being a longer video than I expected it to be. So I hope it was really helpful. Once again, if anyone has any questions or wants any advice, ask down below and I will get to it soon enough, since I am now actually feeling a little bit more alive. Okay, so I will talk to you all later. Bye everyone!